Howdy Canadian MJ friends, hope you're doing well. So we had some action today across the board. We'll look at that. Before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about some stuff, and then we'll get to the usual technical analysis. Today I ended up trading APH with a flip and MNFF MedMen. We'll look at that at the end of the day as well. Currently going to be starting to shift our focus to the US sector, doing a bunch of research with the team over the weekend. I'll put out a video for the US names eventually that we are going to be focusing on the most, and we're going to start charting that industry as we head into the midterm elections. There's rumors about Trump and the current administration shifting their federal standpoint on at least medical marijuana as we head into 2019. So it's definitely a time to start looking at the US sector as well. I don't think that the US sector is going to be far behind Canada, but that could be a couple years, it could be 5 years. We know that politics are slow, but bottom line is there's opportunity in the US. In my opinion, this Canadian hype is just the appetizer of the opportunity that we have before us. Obviously, these Canadian names are going to benefit as well. They're going to have cash ready to go, and they're going to be looking to jump into the US sector once it is more federally accepted on the US side of the border. But there are going to be names that are currently operating in the US that are going to do very well as well. And we're going to be watching for consistent upgrades. So we had APH now, the filing that it's going to uplist. This is all known. I mean, you should be anticipating this for anybody that wants to be serious in the marijuana sector. If you're not listed on the NYSE or the NASDAQ, you're not serious. So APH and ACB were a given. We knew they were going to uplist. It was just a matter of time. I believe ACB begins trading October 23rd. APH, now we have to wait a week or two until we see it actually begin trading as well. I can't wait for that for a number of reasons, because as a US trader, it makes things a lot easier for me. Just an example, oftentimes I will play a break of a CGC level, let's say, a key CGC resistance level, and I'll mark it by a sizable position, and I'll take out that resistance, and then the follow through is the bull momentum after that break with other traders responding to that. I tried to do that with MedMen today, and we'll look at that setup towards the end of the day or the end of the video, but it was so thinly traded on the OTC that my market buy order to break resistance started filling at 704, and it filled all the way up through 730. And it was just a terrible fill. My average ended up at 720, still was able to profit, but it took minutes to fill, and it was just filling little order by little order, whereas with CGC or CRON or TLRY, they're instantaneous fills. It's very quick. It was literally a difference of maybe 98% quicker I would get filled on a CGC market order than I would on an OTC, which is an over-the-counter exchange order, which is where MMNFF is currently trading. So again, I can't wait for this added liquidity. Keep in mind that these names are going to now be correlated to the S&P 500 more. We've seen it with Cron. A member in the chat room today said, I can tell what SPY is doing just by watching what Cron is doing today. And that's because the correlation is there. And the same is for CGC as well. I cannot tell you how many times I see CGC doing its own thing, making its own pattern, and then SPY seeing a bearish dump to a new low of the day, and that influencing what CGC is doing, and that indirectly influences what everybody else in the sector is doing as well. So we have to keep watching the S&P 500, the names that are listed on the major exchanges in the S&P 500, or I should say the NASDAQ or the NYSE, and the correlations are going to continue to strengthen. We're also going to see US ETFs pop up. We have a couple already that have Canadian MJ holdings. We're going to have ETFs that are specific to Canada and specific to the US, and they are going to distinguish themselves a little bit. And then we're going to have leveraged ETFs eventually come in. And we at the Chart Guys bought a bunch of domains a while ago, mjetf.com, mjearningsreport.com, a whole bunch of them. We'll potentially do something with them eventually once we do have significant amount of ETFs trading, but it's the future. We know it's coming. So this APH news was not a surprise, but it did give a nice boost. In response to that, so what I'm going to talk about now is separating. Let's distinguish. Okay, we have APH, the company, the fundamentals. That's one thing. We have APH, the trading instrument, the stock symbol. That's another thing. Let's just distinguish those two from each other right now, because there is clearly inside trading going on in APH. That being said, there's inside trading going on across the board in all stocks every single day. Not all stocks, but a significant number of stocks. We used to have a market maker as a member in the Chart Guys, a former market maker, and he was on the floor as a trader. He knows the inner workings of the system way better than I ever will. And he had a thing that he would say to me, if you ever get inside information, let me know about it and I'll trade on it. And that was just his way of saying the SEC does not have the manpower to go after individuals. Eventually, once in a while, they'll do a headline case, Martha Stewart or whatever, to make a statement, but it's running rampant and there's nothing that they can do because they don't have the resources to combat it. So I'm never going to trade on inside information. It's not worth it to me. There's no reason to break the law when you're successful following the law. That being said, that's not the case for everybody. So this is now the second time in a row and that we've seen APH with unusual action. We've noted and said something's up with APH. You know, it was extremely bullish today comparative to the sector. The last time it happened was when the cigarette company rumors came out the next day in response. Today, the uplisting news comes out the next day after the very unusual buying activity. This is not just, you know, an employee telling their friends and a half dozen people getting in on a move. This is millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars, acting on inside information. So again, this has nothing to do with the company of APH. Just be aware that it is the Wild West out there. There are sharks in these waters, and they're playing this game with every advantage that they can at their disposal. I get messages from trading groups trying to get me to influence the market because we have so many views and a lot of people watch us for Canadian MJ. So, you know, I got a message just a week ago saying, hey, we put out this pump on Reddit and it was really successful and it worked right away. And with the influence that you have, we can really make this thing run into the weekend and let's, you know, make a bunch of money. And my response is I will never, ever do that. It makes me feel dirty even thinking about doing that. And there's no need to do that. I'm not the kind of analyst we're not the kind of trading group with the chart guys to buy a ticker, then tell everybody about the ticker and then sell into that momentum. That's what this trading group is looking to do. Keep in mind with the chart guys, you know, our community, our trader base is trading with easily double-digit millions of dollars. And there are a bunch of trading communities out there. So they are influencing these prices. And as soon as we saw this news come out this morning, the first thing that, you know, we say in the chat room is, okay, this is great news. We're going to get the uplisting. But it is very clear that people put in millions of dollars knowing about this news before it came out, and they're going to look to lock in some profit. So be cautious on this gap up open. And that's exactly what we saw with a close near the low of the day and a lot of profit taking. There was opportunity today. Like I said, I did flip APH once we hit a new high of the day. I believe it was 2014, broke pretty early on. I flipped it real quick, but we closed at the end of the day with some bearish momentum. That's just the bottom line. Just be aware that there's a lot of people out there playing this trading game and they're not all following the rules. There's a lot of manipulation going on. There's rumors. Just wait until the sector isn't all bulls. Obviously, the sector is very bullish right now. Most people are looking bullish due to the hype and the momentum and all that. Once that fades out and once there's opportunities to be made with the bears, you're going to see smear articles. We've seen it before, but you're going to see smear articles. You're going to see, you know, people trying to do anything they can to spread rumors, whatever it is, to have them give them an advantage in trading. So I just want to make everybody aware that that's going on. Again, multiple times I've gotten messages in my inbox from trading groups asking for my help to make money by doing this. So let's now get into, I believe that's all I want to say, technical analysis. So APH had the open. We clearly have a lot of resistance in the $20 range. Again, APH saw some really nice follow through the last 2 days, a huge bounce overall. But in the video yesterday, we were talking about how we're anticipating the 2-day range that we are currently seeing from back on Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday, that's going to be our range that we're going to trade within into next week. So we were anticipating lower highs and APH got closer than most names, but it is still a lower high. 2096 was resistance. We topped out at 2069 and we're closing at the low of the day. So now we're going to look to pull back and form a daily higher low and watch this daily range continue to tighten in an equilibrium into next week. And we can say that an equilibrium is the most likely scenario because when you have high volatility, that's normally what you see afterwards. So if we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, it'll probably be a bit clear. So it's our high, low of the dump, lower high, and we're going to look for a 4-hour higher low, maybe set tomorrow. We have to see what the volume looks like on the pullback. And once we set that higher low, we'll then look for that tightening 4-hour range into next week. So I already know that APH is going to give us a good trade setup with a tightening range set to break at some point next week. So we'll be watching for that break, and the bulls will be looking to try and catch a higher low when it does form here, and we can watch the shorter term time frames for some details. Perhaps the 15-minute trend, maybe when the 15-minute trend changes back to the bulls, we'll have our 4-hour higher low to be watching. That's something that I'm going to keep an eye out for tomorrow and Monday. So overall, all in all, we are going to look to stay within this range for at least, I would say, again, pending news, but I would say 2 to 4 trading days, we're going to stay within this current range that's forming at this point. There's a lot of resistance in the $20 range for APH, But if we get a 4-hour equilibrium bull break, that's all going to be left behind as we head right back to $22. If we get a 4-hour equilibrium bear break, we're going to be looking down at 1677 and 1578. I don't think we're going to get a bear break without the sector following along. CGC is still the leader, and there was an example today where ACB and APH had really strong follow through to start today compared to where we closed yesterday. They broke the high of yesterday real quick, but their move was stifled because CGC did not break bullish. CGC is in a tightening hourly pattern, and it did not break the high of yesterday. So it's almost like I was driving someone to the airport, and it was an analogy that came into my head, like a dog sled team. And we had APH and ACB today. We're at the lead of the dog pack. They're ready to go. They're ready to see continuation on this bull move, and they're running. And then they look back, and someone in the back of the line, CGC, who is normally at the head of the pack, they were at the back of the line, and they were lagging, and they were not coming along, and that's slowing everybody else down. So I used that information seeing, okay, CGC is not breaking bullish today. I need to be cautious in this sector, and we are looking for lower highs compared to the highs we saw back on Tuesday. And I use that information to take my profit a bit more aggressively from Blue Sky Breakout MMNFF, just assuming that if CGC can't break bullish and it pulls back, then we're going to see that affect all individual names with a little bit of sluggishness. And we're not going to be able to see, these names run wild on their own if we're not seeing CGC as the sector leader following along as well. So here we have an hourly equilibrium. It's going to break tomorrow, in my opinion, on CGC. And that's going to dictate momentum into next week. So the range I'm watching is the low and the high of Tuesday. We have a higher low attempt here, and that's at 48.50. So 48.30 and 48.50 is the higher low, and resistance is 52.87. We topped out at 52.38 today, could not break the high yesterday. That was the signal to take profit. The inability for continuation, and we saw 4 hours of profit taking after that. Bulls need to show up tomorrow morning because you can see we're much closer to a support break than a resistance break. And let's see what we're doing after hours here. Not much, but if we break these support levels bearish, we're still looking right back down at our daily support level of 46.52. That's a very important support to hold to maintain the daily uptrend. So if we break 48.30, 46.52 then becomes the most important level. And the bulls need to show up tomorrow morning to give us a lower high. Likely won't break 52.38 without any news. So we would look for a lower high and a continued tightening hourly range into tomorrow afternoon if we are able to hold 48.50 and 48.30 first thing tomorrow morning. If these levels break bearish, again, we're going to look for APH to pull back on the 4 hour and follow the sector and look for a higher low somewhere. And let's see how the other names are positioned to absorb any potential weakness if we do get this bear break on CGC, which again, at this moment in time is more likely than a bull break because we only need 55 cents to the downside for a bear break. Meanwhile, we need about $4 for a bull break. Big difference. ACB on the daily. This may be our lower high now. We have the high, low. This may be our lower high. You can see we got nowhere near as close as APH did on its follow through. Obviously, APH had the news behind it, but let's look at the 4 hour time frame. So high, low, lower high. And if we pull back tomorrow and break 13.18, that's going to tell us, all right, that was our lower high. It was not a significant bounce in terms of getting back to where resistance was. Certainly a significant bounce in terms of percentages from the lows, but not significant to get back to previous resistance. So if we break 13.18, we're then going to have to see the bulls form a higher low and defend 1191 support. So the range right now is 1191, resistance is 1436, and if we break 13.18, it's a 4 hour equilibrium and tightening range, more favoring the bears if we're comparing it to APH. So the 4 hour equilibrium on APH is favoring the bulls because we have much more space to work with, and the 4 hour for ACB, much less space to work with before we would break to a lower low. So Cron, let's see how Cron stands out, even weaker. So daily inside bar, and again, we don't even have any clear lower high because the bounce hasn't gotten any follow through. So just like CGC, we did not see Cron break bullish. What's the comparison between Cron and CGC? They're both listed on the NASDAQ and the NYSE. SPY today was down 1.44%. That's a significant bearish day. And in my opinion, the correlation to the S&P 500 is holding back CGC and Cron. They did not get anywhere near as much follow through as ACB and APH did. So it's an inside bar. A break tomorrow of 1045 is bearish. That has us looking right down to 1012, and a break of 1116 would be bullish. If we break 1012 support, or I should say 1045 is actually the first key support. If we break 1045, we look to 1012. After 1012, there's a gap to fill at 990. 4-hour time frame, again, much weaker. It's the hourly tightening range to be watching. Just like CGC, we have the low, high of the bull move. 1045 is a little low with 1050 right there as well. And 1116 is our lower high. So again, tightening hourly range for both CRON and CGC. And the Canadian MJ sector is going to start tomorrow bearish if we see CGC break 1050 and 1030. Or excuse me, it's 4850 and 4830. And if we see CRON break 1050 and 1045 bearish first thing. That will be an initial bearish signal. And we're going to see, if we get bear breaks, we'll see CRON and CGC drop to lower lows long before ACB and APH. Again, they have more space to work with because the bounce was more significant. TLRY, not a daily inside bar. We did get a bull break here, but we didn't get much follow through at all. So it is a higher low and a higher high. The key support to maintain this little hourly uptrend is here at 146.01 and resistance is 155.95. So this bounce stays in control of the bulls if we can hold 146.01, but break that level, and we're looking back down at 143.54 and 142.65. Key resistance of 155.95 breaking tomorrow would be a great sign for continuation of this bounce, with the next level of 162.40 as a resistance level to be watching. So TLRY is in its own little setup. Again, we're grouping CGC and CRON with the hourly equilibrium, APH and ACB with the 4-hour equilibrium, and TLRY doing its own thing with a higher low and higher high on the hourly. So MMNFF. And we also had good news for the US MJ sector with IAN merging with MPX. MPX is going to get absorbed by IAN. Both of those names responded really well to that bullish news. Again, we're just going to be doing fundamental research this weekend, looking at market caps and revenue, determining who the main players are, digging into their financials. We don't usually do fundamentals, but if I'm looking at long-term potential investments, like we were looking at the Canadian MJ sector back in July 2015, obviously we need to know what the fundamentals are. And most important for me with those fundamentals, what's the share count and what's dilution look like? So for MMNFF, this is an example of, a lot of people say, I have trouble picking plays to focus on during the day. And this is the kind of setup where I had zero intention of playing MedMen today. And 10 minutes before the open, I looked at this hourly chart and said, I'm playing that break. I know this pattern. I've seen this pattern and played this pattern over 1,000 times before in my life. So it's very easy for me to just jump right in. I haven't watched MedMen trade in the last 2 days. I knew it was close to all-time highs, which is why I looked at it this morning. But other than that, that's the only reason that I looked at it this morning. So I said, all right, that's a perfect equilibrium. If we see a bull break of 708, I'm in. And blue sky breakouts right there. It's an ideal scenario. So that break happened early this morning, and it was an easy day maker just by playing the bull break and locking in profit on the way up. And again, I was more aggressively locking in profit because of the rest of the sector not being entirely bullish and seeing CGC struggling and forming a daily inside bar. So like I said, I did my market order with a bit of a large position as far as an OTC stock is concerned. So it was a large order. I got terrible fills for 26 cents to the upside. My average ended up being 720, and I immediately start taking some profit to take some off the table. And what it does when I'm taking profit is it lowers my cost basis for break even. So if my average is 720 and I take a third of my profit at 730 on the initial bull move up, instantly the rest of my position is lower than 720 for break even. It would be down at about I'm not going to do that math off the top of my head, perhaps around 716 or so in terms of what my break-even cost would be. So from there, I took more profit when we hit the 750s, another leg up. We're getting extended. We're in blue sky breakout. I could be greedy and try and go for the home run, or I can continue to lock in small profit on the way up, get my base hit like I attempt to do every single day. The home runs will come like they did earlier in the week with that WEED setup for CGC, that big bull move. And until then, I'm just going to continue to lock in profit and get those base hits. So I locked in another 15% or so in the low 750s. Again, that drops my cost basis back down even more. And then as soon as I saw this was healthy consolidation on the hourly until right about here. And as soon as we saw this action, that showed us more than the bulls want to see on that healthy consolidation. So I exited when I saw CGC and SPY weakness for the rest of my profit. And it was almost going back to my initial buying point. I exited in the low 720s, but because I took profit on the way up, it was a day maker and a profitable trade. So that's just a little bit of insight into how I do things, scaling out into bull momentum. I don't want to be selling into weakness and trying to chase the bid and the ask on the way down. I want the bulls to have momentum and to be buying into my asks and my limit orders on the way up, and let the bulls come to me rather than trying to chase the bears trying to exit on the way down. That's where we stand. We'll share our US findings eventually, probably sometime early to mid next week, in terms of names that we're going to be focusing on the most, and we'll be charting those as well as these Canadian names, distinguishing between the two a bit. And other than that, I hope you all had a good day. So tightening ranges on the 4-hour and the hourly to be watching tomorrow, because the hourly is going to break first for CRON and CGC. That's going to have the majority of my attention. But if we get that bear break on CGC, we'll likely look for APH to head back down into the mid to lower $18 range to be looking for that 4-hour higher low. So that's where we stand. Hope you're well. Hope you learned something. We'll see you tomorrow. Do some good things. Recently, I shared a message about, where is it here? So Zach here, part of the Do Good Things desire is to share our profits. And so I posted this, I believe, at the end of the MJ video and the end of the crypto video, because one of our members knows this family personally and just want to report that they raised the $500,000 to send Zach to the US to get the treatment, to potentially, or I should say, to give him a better chance, which is certainly all we can do and hope for. And someone ended up donating 130,000 euros, an anonymous person. So thanks for everybody that did take the time to look into this story and donate. Certainly happier ending for now, and we'll keep in touch and see how Zach ends up in the US as well. So thanks again. Do those good things. We'll see you next time.